You want to be able to listen a little bit because somebody's going to give you a gem, but nobody knows but you. You can't get advice on what you should do with your life. Nobody knows what you are. Like even sometimes you don't really even know what you are. You got to take your shot. And it's like, as much as you want people to agree and you want the people around you to be supporting your dreams, it's not going to be like that all the time. You got to do it alone. And people will help you, and when you get the ball rolling, people will jump on. But if you don't believe, nobody else is going to believe. People come along because your belief is so insane, that your belief is so strong. So a dude screamed to me the other night, "Hey, Will, I want to be an actor, man. I want to be an actor just like you." You know, usually people say stuff to me like that. I'm like, "Yeah, man, you always give them an encouraging word." But I was just sitting here thinking, and it dawned on me, 99% of people that say stuff like that are not willing to do what it takes to make their dreams come true. The Marines have a saying, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right? So if the world is attacking you and the world wants to fight you and the world's trying to hold you down, so you're going to kick yourself in you're going to stop yourself from getting what you dream. Self-discipline is the center of all material success. You cannot win the war against the world if you can't win the war against your own mind. Fail early, fail often, fail forward. You know, it's always a little bit frustrating to me when people have a negative relationship with failure. Failure is a massive part of being able to be successful. You have to get comfortable with failure. You have to actually seek failure. Failure is where all of the lessons are. Successful people fail a lot. They fail a whole lot more than they succeed, but they extract the lessons from the failure and they use that the energy and they use the wisdom to come around to the next phase of success. You gotta take a shot. You have to live at the edge of your capabilities. You gotta live where you're almost certain you're gonna fail. That's the reason for practice. Practice is controlled failure. Your failure actually helps you to recognize the areas where you need to evolve.
You know, we're all writing a book. What's your book look like? You got a bunch of chapters in your book, but when they close that book, how good was the book? How good was your book? What was the ending to your book? If the ending to my book can be so amazing because of all that was done, not the money, all that was accomplished, all of the things that can be associated with you and your existence become a part of the chapters in your book. So my drive is about my book. That's the thing. All I'm doing is sparking the awareness in others to go, why not? Why can't I create? Why can't I start? Why can't I be a business? Why can't I be a CEO? Why can't I be a tech? Why can't I? That some people just don't understand they can do. Because I never was content with doing just one, two, or three. Why not? I'm genuinely happy. Discovery makes me happy. Like when you find different things to be excited about, it makes me happy.
Couple's been fighting and you walk into a room and you think, wow, you can cut the air with a knife. It's because you can feel the residual energy in the room from the exchange the couple's been having. You can feel the energy they've been putting out of their bodies, the energy they've been releasing through their hearts. You know, your heart is simply an electromagnetic generator. That's what it does. You know, your heart is the power source of your body, not only because it pumps the blood around your body, but also because it creates the electromagnetic field that your body needs for you to exist. And this is the way it works. And when you really begin to look into it and look into it really deeply, you begin to realize that this electromagnetic field that your heart is generating, this energy, is in fact a language. And it's the language of feeling and emotion, the language of electromagnetism, and it is the main way that you are communicating with the energetic field around you. The problem is that many people simply don't know this conversation is going on. You know, many people don't take it into account, even when they're having trouble with their lives and they're trying to fix themselves up and get positive about something or create something good in their lives or create some direction for themselves or find something positive. They very often don't take into account the energetic conversation that they're having. What is their deepest intentions in what they're doing? Is what they're doing, are they doing it for profit, for self-service, or what are they doing? What is your real motivation in why you do what you do?
That we should plant trees under whose shade we do not plan to sit. And he was speaking about this principle of selfless sacrifice. And that kind of just penetrated me right there. When he said the words selfless sacrifice, for the first time in my life, I felt a thrill about something that I'd never felt before. I thought, wow, giving up everything you have for the service of others sounds like the best thing you could possibly do. And I don't know why I had that thought, because I wasn't a spiritual kid growing up. I wasn't a religious kid growing up. I wasn't even a good kid growing up. I was just a rebel, a misfit, trying things out, an experimenter, which I still consider myself. And so what I started to do is I was interning at companies and firms and corporates, thinking I was getting a grad job afterwards. And then I'd spend the rest of my summer holidays interning in India, living with him as a monk. So I'd use all my summer and Christmas holidays to just be out there with the monks. And he introduced me to another 200 to 500 monks that were just like him, just as smart, just as bright, giving up everything they had and using all their skills to make the world a better place.
I want to go back to why that resonated with you, which is really surprising. So, and maybe you're just, so far ahead of where I was at the time, but that would have sounded absurd to me at that time.
Yeah.
Did you already have a sense of unease that like I'm a rebel without a cause, or like, what was it about that moment? And you seem very aware of yourself. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that some of that awareness was present then. Like, what was that moment?
I believe the moment was I've always had friends who are older than me. And I could see a lot of them in the most successful careers, successful jobs, beautiful partners, whatever it was. But I saw a sense of lack of fulfillment, meaning, and purpose in their lives. And I've always been an observer, and I would see these people who are like 5 years older than me, 7 years older than me, maybe 10 years older than me. And I'd be watching them and go, is that the life I want? And often the advice I give to people today is fast forward where you are, look at yourself in 10, 15, 20 years time, and ask yourself the question, is that where I want to be? If you're in a company, look at the person who's 20 years ahead of you and ask yourself, is that where I want to be? If you're in a startup, look at where other startups have got to in similar roles and go, is that where I want to be? And if the answer is no, then you need to find a new path. And for me, the answer at that time from observing was no. The path that my parents or society or the university I went to or the community I had that was carving out for me, it didn't feel like the path for me. So I was almost seeking an alternative or a new path. I was just so fortunate that it happened to be an uplifting, powerful path as opposed to something that could have actually taken me down the wrong road, because that could have been possible too.
So walk me through the first time you step off the plane in India. It's summer.
And so I'm living there, I'm waking up. I'm almost doing all the practices, just as if you were shadowing a CEO. I'm just shadowing a monk. And so I'm just shadowing his lifestyle. So we wake up, he's like one of the most elite monks. So we're waking up at like 2 a.m. every day after sleeping at like 9 or 10 p.m. And then we study these ancient Vedas, which are 5,000 plus years old, together. And we spend 2 hours, and I'm studying with the best of the best here. So he can like analyze and assimilate, and I'm learning fast, taking notes. Then 4 a.m. we go to collective meditation. We do those practices with the other monks as well. 6 a.m. we have personal meditation. So I'm literally going through the life of a monk and falling in love with it step by step, going, wow, I've never had this experience before. I just threw myself in and I was practicing it to the T, right? It wasn't like, oh no, my back hurts when I sit on the floor, I can't stay here for too long. Or, today when people are like, oh, I can't meditate for longer than 2 minutes. I was like, no, I'm gonna do it for 2 hours. If that's what they're doing, I'm gonna give it a go. Because I can only test, the hypothesis will only be true if the experiment is carried out to the degree that they are. So if the hypothesis is, if you live like this, you'll be happy, more fulfilled, then I want to do that.
All right, so let's explore this then through the lens of creating one's own perfect life.
Yes.
Which is pretty interesting, especially because I think this is so accurate to the way that most people are. It's not like, oh, there's some grand missing thing in my life, but you took that first action. So codify this for me, or for anybody that they don't know what their ideal life looks like. They just know that they're not living it yet. Mm-hmm. So step number one is take it seriously. To find out if the hypothesis is true or not, you have to take the experiment. You have to do it sincerely. What comes after that?
I think even one step before that is opening yourself up to new role models and new experiences. See, we live in echo chambers. We're just surrounded by the same thinking. How often do you bump into a monk? You know, it just doesn't happen. No one has a dinner party and goes, oh yeah, we just invited the monk, you know, from town, like the local monk. Like no one ever does that. And so we meet people who are just like us most of the time.
Are we so immature that we can't hear different opinions? Even those we don't like, sits back in amazement, horrified, call the police, and make our own judgments on what's being said and the validity of it. Do we not have the maturity to put forward another counter argument, which, if we are confident in what we're saying, will demolish that which we don't agree with? Anyone that wants to silence people rather than argue their case can't have much confidence in their own case, surely. And once you go down this road of giving authority the right to decide what can be said, what opinions can be had, you are in a tyranny, and that's where we're going now. But it's bigger than that, because it's not just political correctness. You can't say this, you can't say that, you must say that. It's also the fact that humanity has been hoaxed on a monumental scale in relation to freedom of expression and freedom of information. And it's been done out of an area that I call the devil's playground. It's better known as Silicon Valley. What's happened is, when you do the research, intelligence organizations like the CIA in the United States, the National Security Agency, and the Pentagon, through an organization called DARPA, the Technological Development Arm of the Pentagon, they began seed funding technology and companies to develop what has become now known as the Internet, and an outgrowth of that, what became known as social media, and the search engine technology, which eventually became known as Google. All those were seed funded by this military intelligence network. And when they were selling it, because you can't show something's real face at the start, otherwise people will reject it and it won't get anywhere. You have to put another face to the world. So it was Google. Oh yeah, Google, yeah, and we just go to search engine, we can find what we like, that's great, hey. And social media, oh, you post to your friends, you can say what you like, there's no censorship, isn't it great? And then it builds, and then it builds, and then it builds, and now you've reached a point now with Facebook where it claims 2.2 billion active users in a global population of 7.5 billion. You have this 90% monopoly on search engines, searches of Google. You have YouTube, which has got basically a monopoly on the posting of internet videos, which is owned by Google. And once this monopolistic situation was reached, then they started saying, okay, now we've got this much control, we're going to start deciding what you see and what you don't see.
And when you make up your mind to be defined by a vision of the future, instead of the memories of the past, all you have to do is make a decision, just with a level of intensity that has such a strong amplitude of energy that in that moment your body begins to respond to your mind. In other words, the choice that you make becomes a decision that you never forget. It becomes an experience. And the stronger you have that emotion, the more you are going to pay attention to what you're focusing on in your mind, and now you're beginning to remember your future. Long-term memories are created by strong, highly charged emotional events. The stronger the emotional charge you feel from some event, the more you pay attention to the cause, and the brain takes a snapshot, and that's called a memory. So then, how do you change the memory of the past? You got to start remembering your future, and you got to come out of your resting state, and that moment has to define you. So everybody's done this, and you just got to have a clear intent on what you want. And so learn, study, get something in your brain that's going to stimulate you about what's possible. And then begin to dream or begin to build a model of what it could look like, and don't let go of it. And begin to experience the emotions of how you feel when it happens. And teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like. So it only requires two things: a clear intention, that's a function of a coherent, organized brain, and an elevated emotion, which is a function of your heart and your body. And when you combine those two, you're going to change your energy. And when you change your energy, you're going to change your life. But that's the start. Because it's so easy to forget your vision. It's easier to forget it than remember it, right? It's easier to believe in your past than to believe in your future. It's easier to romance your past than to romance your future, or fall in love with your past than it is your future. But people who start falling in love with their future more than their past falls away. So then, you got to write down the thoughts in that day that are not going to sneak by your awareness unchecked. Like, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, what's wrong with me? It's my mother's fault, my father was an alcoholic, my ex was a whatever. You gotta be so conscious of those thoughts that you're not going to let them slip by and go unconscious to them. You got to decide what choices you got to stop making. You got to stop behaving a certain way. You got to stop having the same experiences and staying away from those people that create those same experiences. And you got to watch those emotions that are going to bring you to a lower denominator, because the moment you start feeling suffering or pain or frustration, you just disconnected from the energy of your future, and now you're back to the energy of your past. So,
and that is to fully realize that there are two dimensions, so to speak, to who you are. The one that is defined in form, which includes the physical form and the psychological form and the thinking entity. So your consciousness has the two dimensions. There's an intermediate area, but we don't need to go there. There's the conscious dimension of thinking, and that creates your conventional sense of identity. And there is the deeper space where there is a vast consciousness that is not defined in form. So there's the two of you, the known, the person, and the unknown, the undefined, or as the Buddha called it, the unmanifested, the unborn, the uncreated. And the Buddha added, this is one of the sutras in my free translation. So he said, there is the unborn, the unmanifested, the uncreated. If there were not, sorry, the sutras are a little bit repetitive, if there were not the unborn, the unmanifested, the uncreated, there would be no escape from the born, the manifested, and the created. And I'm adding in my free translation, and you would be completely stuck in it and with it. So there is a dimension in every human that is far deeper than what you conventionally consider is the I. So you can say there is the I that is defined through thought, and there is a deeper I that is not defined. And the purpose of your existence really is, in evolutionary terms, is to find that deeper being, the undefined, the unknown, and bring that into this dimension and into your life. And you all have made the discovery already that you don't need to think continuously, and that your deeper sense of who you are does not depend on what your mind is saying about who you are. There is a more immediate, much more real sense of I than you could ever find through thinking about who you are.
Hi, welcome back to Mind Control.
Bang on the door. I'm the oldest, they're screaming, so I go answer the door. And I answer the door, and standing there is this giant man. It was this little boy. And he's holding this huge box of food. And beside him on the ground was a black pot with an uncooked turkey in it. And he said, "Is your father home?" And I said, "Just one moment." I was like, this is a gift from God. This is going to change it all. This can make my mom and dad happy. It's going to be unbelievable. So I go, and my father is screaming at my mother through a closed door to the bedroom door. And I said, Dad, there's a guy at the door. And he goes, "You answer the door." I said, "I did. He's got to see you." So I kind of teased. I said, "Dad, you got to come." So he said, "Fine." He made one last yell at her, and he walks to the door. And I'm waiting there, just can't waiting to see his face. And my dad opens the door, and this man's standing there with this big box of food. And my father did not get happy. He looked at this man, and he raised his voice to him, and he said, "Look, we don't take charity." And then he took the door to slam it in the man's face. But the man was a good-sized man. He put his foot there and smacked his foot and bounced back over. He said, Sir, this is not charity. Everybody has tough times. Somebody knows you're having a tough time, and they want you to have a magical Thanksgiving. I'm just the delivery guy." He said, "Please take this." And my father said, "We don't take charity." He went to slam it again. And this time the guy put his shoulder against it so he couldn't do it. And then my father's staring at him. It's like these two males starting to get this intense mode. And one just trying to give a gift, and I'm freaking. And then the guy said something that I'll never forget, and in moments I wished he hadn't said. But he found a way to force my father. He's holding this thing, and he looked at me, and then he looked at my dad, and he said, "Don't make your family suffer because of your ego." Now my dad's level of energy increased, but he was also trapped. You get it? So he took the food, slammed it on our table, and slammed the door in the man's face, and never even thanked him. And then I thought, years I figured out, our whole life is shaped by decisions. That's what we've talked about today, right? But there's 3 decisions you're making every moment you're alive. And the way you make these 3 decisions shapes your destiny. First decision we're all making every moment is, what are you going to focus on? What are you going to focus on? I realized that my father's life and my life ended up very different because we made that day 3 decisions very differently. He decided to focus on the fact that he has not fed his family. And the second question you got to decide, every moment you're alive, including this moment, what are you going to focus on? Second question is, as you're focusing on, what does this mean? What does it mean? And the bottom line on meaning is, if you think about it, you get to make up the meaning, and most people pick the worst one, don't they? That day, my father decided to focus on the fact he hadn't fed his family, and I know what meaning he gave because he said it out loud over and over again, that he was worthless because he had not taken care of his family. And then the final, most important decision you make every moment you're alive, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I'll tell you what he decided to do. He decided to leave our family shortly thereafter, which at the time was the worst experience of my life. It was the most crushing experience I felt. I realized in that moment that the worst day of my life, my father leaving, had actually been the best day of my life. Because if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be here today. And now because of that, I'm getting to live this life. And I have the desire and the drive and the want to give it this way.
Life is going smoothly, then the bottom falls out. Everything is coming up roses, then the bottom falls out. That life starts going your way finally, then the bottom falls out.
And when we begin to understand and know that, accepting that reality that we will never ever have things just on an even keel all the time, that you're going to have some ups and you're going to have some downs. But during those down moments, that's where the growth takes place. That's where the work is.
You worked on a job 35 years and now you're laid off. You planned for life to work a certain way and then the bottom falls out. You're looking for this and God sends that. That even though you love God does not mean that the bottom will not fall out.
You might be going through a season, since darkness is the absence of a thing. You might be going through a season of the absence of a thing that you legitimately need, but it ain't over. You have to be awfully immature to think that every day is going to be a good day. Some days are better than other days. And some days, if it ain't one thing, it's another.
One of the things that we know about life is that it is always changing. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. Sometimes things go real well, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you're happy, and sometimes you're sad. Now that's that thing called life.
You may have to function for a while without the absence of the thing you adore. But it's not over. It's just that God has created the treasures of darkness. And in order to create the treasures of darkness, he has to take away light so that he can incubate what he's about to do in your life.
And I'm going to tell you right now, it won't be easy. It will be hard because life is hard. That's what life is. And these challenges, they're going to do their best to take you down. Do not let them. Stand up, dig in.
In the end, we are only as strong as the adversity that we overcome. The pain of the adversity will eventually subside, but the lesson will always remain. And that lesson will strengthen you to endure your next battle, this time stronger and wiser than before.
Line up those problems and confront them. Face them. Do not let them bring you down. In fact, let those challenges raise you up. Let them elevate you. Let their demands and their trials make you stronger. Let the adversity you face today turn you into a better person tomorrow.
The way you handle your good years will determine if you survive the bad years. In other words, you must learn to maximize the positive. If you don't learn how to maximize the good times and minimize the bad times, then you won't make it through the famine.
Victory begins in the dark. And we all go through these times where we don't think it's going to work out. Seasons where nothing is changing. We're being our best, but the business is not growing. The fact is, light is on the way. What God promised you is en route. You've been believing for things to change in your marriage, your finances, with an addiction. It seems permanent. You've already entered a new day. You've already passed midnight. You can't see it yet, but victory is on the way.
Life and business is like the changing seasons. You cannot change the seasons. That's impossible. You can't rearrange the seasons. The seasons are going to come however they're going to come, and you cannot change that. So you cannot change the seasons. But make this note, you can change yourself. That was the message I got when I was 25 years old with someone who took the time to teach me. You can change yourself.
Now, instead of complaining about the dark, have a new perspective. The dark means the sun is on the way up. The promise is about to come forth. Who can stop the sun from rising each morning? Who can keep light from breaking forth over the horizon? All the forces of darkness cannot stop what God has ordained for you. They cannot keep what He promised from coming to pass. In the face of that darkness, when you don't see any light, get in agreement with God.
See, anybody can feel good when they have their health, their bills are paid. Anybody could be positive then. Anybody can have a larger vision then. Anybody can have faith under those kinds of circumstances. The real challenge of growth, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, comes when you get knocked down. Somebody said that adversity introduces a man to himself or a woman.
Adversity is a gift. Embrace it. Trying to avoid adversity would be like trying to avoid the tide while swimming in the ocean. But like the ocean, if you can learn to embrace the tide of adversity, you will eventually learn to let it lift you up, and you can ride the wave to shore unscathed. And in that moment, take a look around, because the view that you have after you've overcome your adversity is absolutely breathtaking.
Thank you so much for watching till the end. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. Please also like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and families.
Why are you happy with that part of your life right now? Even if you're not happy with everything, what's the area you're happy with and why? Put me on hold right now, or if you're not going to do that, just think for a moment. Why? Specifically, be real. Why? Now, when I ask this, if you turn me back on now, if I ask this of an audience, I'll have people write this down for a few minutes, and I'll call on people, and I'll say, share with the person next to you first. What are you happy about, and why are you happy in that area? And be specific. And after they share, I'll have people stand up, I'll call on a variety of people, and I say, ma'am, tell me, what are you happy about? And she'll say, well, honestly, I'm really happy with my body. She goes, I never thought I'd say that, but I used to be so unhappy with it, and you know, I did some things, I pushed myself through, and now I exercise regularly, and you know, I'm not perfect, but I feel fit, I feel strong, I feel energetic, and that's really, I don't know, it just feels good to me. Now, I say to everybody, I'm now going to show you what the formula for happiness is, and it's real simple. I want to reveal it to you so you don't ever forget it. Whenever you're happy with an area of your life, it's because right now, your current life experience, I call it your LC, your life conditions, the conditions of your life conditions in that area match or are equal to your blueprint, your story, your belief about how life should be in that area. So this woman says to me, I'm really happy with my body because it's not perfect. Her blueprint is I don't need to be perfect, but it's so much better than it was. I'm fit and I'm strong and I have this energy. Her mental blueprint says I should be fit, strong, and have energy. I don't need to be perfect, but I should be that way. Well, when my life, my body matches how I think it should be, I feel good about my life. I'll ask somebody else. I'll say, you know, tell me an area you're happy with. Someone else will say, well, I'm really happy with my career. And why? Well, I'm doing better than I even thought I would be. I mean, I'm ahead of the schedule of where I hoped I'd be at this stage. I'm working at this level in this company, and I have these skills and this ability, and it's even better than I thought. Well, once again, listen, this person's happy with this area of their life because their current life conditions in the area called their career are even better than they expected they would be, better than their blueprint, better than their belief of how it should be. If it's really better, you tend to be over the moon. One woman would say, you know, I gotta tell you, I said, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my whole life. How come? She goes, because I have this man in my life and I'm in love with him and he loves me and I can be myself with him. And we have this incredible intimacy and this passion and we want to be with each other all the time. And I never get bored with him. You want to be with somebody that you can have total intimacy with, somebody who you love and loves you. Those are part of her rules, her beliefs of how it should be. She said, you know, it needs to be, I never want to be with anybody else. I want to be with them every moment. Her blueprint about how life should be and the way she lives, her relationship's even better than she hoped. When it's better than you hope, you're going to be totally excited. So Think about this then. What's an area you're not happy with? Let's see if we can find the formula for unhappiness. If the formula for happiness is to be able to meet your expectations or exceed them, that really makes you excited, but to be happy, you gotta at least meet it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you generally are meeting what you expect you want from your life in that area, you feel good. Life conditions match blueprint, feel good. So what makes you feel bad? What creates pain, stress, frustration? Real easy way to figure it out. Answer this question. What's an area of your life you're not happy with? I mean, be honest with yourself. And even if your life is great in all kinds of ways, I'm sure there's an area you'd like to improve. Anybody who's honest, if they're doing great in their career, very often they don't take care of their body so much. If they're really focused on their body, very often they find themselves in a position where they're not spending enough time with their kids. Or if they're spending time with their kids, their intimate relationship's not doing so well, because it's the nature of human beings to focus on areas they feel comfortable with and strong in and give those time.
What are the elements of turning nothing into something? Only humans can do this. Here they are. Number one, imagination. Imagine the possibilities. It's hard to say imagination is not something. It's just that it's not tangible. Imagination is not, it's not a table, but it is powerful. Imagination. For that long journey, saved my life. Believe that it's possible for you. A little phrase says, with faith, all things are possible. Without faith, nothing's possible. If there's one thing to pray for, that's probably it. Faith to believe. One, to imagine. Number two, faith to believe. What would make us believe? Testimonials? Someone finishes a dramatic testimonial. Here's where I started, when I was 18 years old. Here's where I am today. And then they finish by saying, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. Come on, right? I started just like you. I read the first book. I went to the first class. I made the first decision to start the process of change. That's how we get inspired. One, to imagine. Two, to believe. Then here's number three. Go to work and make it real. How to turn nothing into something. That's how this complex of buildings got here. Someone saw them when the property was vacant. You say, well, how can you see something that isn't there? Well, if someone can't see it when it isn't here, it will never be here. And some people can see it so clearly, they could give you the artist's rendering and say to you, this is the building. You say, no, it doesn't exist. Say, yes, it really does. In thought, in mind, in imagination. Then to believe that it's possible for you. Then simply go to work. That kind of teaching, that kind of training, right? The management of your time, the management of your money. I've been teaching now all these years the 70, 10, 10, and 10 on the management of your money. A lady not long ago told me she was in real estate. I said, how many properties do you own? She said, no, Mr. Owen, I sell real estate. I said, let me ask the question one more time. How many properties do you own? She said, not any. So here's what I said. If you sell real estate, you make a living. If you buy real estate, you make a fortune. Let me tell you one of the incredible real estate stories. 13 years ago, Ron Wagenhals up in Carmel, California, said, Mr. Owen, I have this neat little condo downtown Carmel where I know you want to live. I said, yes, I do. And he said, it's really small, but it's right there downtown, one bedroom. And he said, I want $80,000 for it. I said, nobody's gonna pay $80,000. I mean, this is a real tiny place.
There was one line in there that hit me and it stuck. And the one line was, like the dude that came to see him on the horse. Like, I don't know if y'all remember the movie, but he was riding with him. Like, he was riding with him at every single battle. Like, it was a point in every single battle when it got tough, and Leonidas with his 300, when it got a little tough, he would call on the Arcadians, and they'll come from between the rocks, they'll come out with their crew, and they'll wipe out whoever they was going against, and they'll handle it, right? And so at a certain point, my man saw up on the hill, he saw a little humpback dude, and he saw some more soldiers, more than they had ever saw. And so he came to him, but he was riding with him at every single battle, but he came to him when he saw more than he had ever saw, and he said to him, it's over. They told him they'll give him everything he was fighting for. They came to him at one point, they came to the United States, they said, we'll give you everything you want. Like, you fighting for your land, you can have your land. You want water, like you can have your water. Everything you fighting for, we'll give it to you, and we'll make you king. You'll reign supreme over everything, and everybody got to report to you. They told him that, but they said one word, and when they said the one word, he'll walk off and he'll shake his head. And the one word that they said was submit. Every time they mentioned submission, it was like he just went into another mode and he wasn't trying to hear. And so when my man came to him on the horse, he said, we got to submit. When he said we got to submit, you saw his eyes got big and he transformed into something else. He went to him, the thing that stuck to me, Duke, he told him, every man must search his own soul. And he said, while you at it, like you've been battling with me, you've been going with me, but when the adversity and the opposition and the challenge got tougher, you said, you got to go. Like we dead, so while you at it, you search your own soul and you run off, you tell everybody, we gonna stand and we gonna live and we gonna die by what we stand for, and everybody gonna know what we represent and what we're a part of. Because we said, at a certain point, we said we was gonna live and we gonna die by it. And the thing I love about sports and the thing I love about life, whatever you want, you gotta be willing to accept whatever come with it. Like it's like a cat in the street. If you wanna be a gangster, you can't be a gangster until you meet a gangster. Like you can't be a warrior until you meet a warrior. You say, no, I don't want to be a warrior no more. Like you got to be willing to accept whatever come with it. And he was talking about 11, 15 meetings. And I was talking to Rob in the car. And I said, man, the dangerous thing about having talent, like when you're in the league, everybody can run fast, jump high, hit cats. Everybody can cut it and slice it however you want to cut it and slice it. Everybody can play ball, right? But the thing about it, I told Rob, you got to be careful when you got talent, because sooner or later, if you're not careful, you can become a victim of your own talent. And when you become a victim of your own talent, you don't value the small things anymore. And at a certain point in the early years, the small things were the foundation. And this is the thing that got you to the point that you are at now. But now we don't value it because we feel as if we've gotten to a certain point. Like adversity is adversity, opposition is opposition, challenges are challenges. But it's not so much about the opposition and the adversity that we face as it is about the perspective that we have about the opposition and the adversity that we face. Meaning perspective drives performance every day of the week. How you view what you do will always affect how you do what you do. Like I love 300 just because when they said retreat, my man, like we ain't going nowhere. You came to me, you disrespected my wife, you disrespected, like he could have quit, he could have stopped fighting for it. But the purpose for what he was fighting for was greater than any individual, and so he went to war, the purpose. Meaning the thing of what he was fighting for was greater than any individual, was greater than any 300. And when he died, I'll never forget, one of the soldiers laid down, he said, man, it was an honor to die by you.